Hello, everyone. Today we are going to introduce the animal kingdom and we are going to review and discuss the main characteristics that all animals share. So, zoology is the study of animals. The prefix zoo means animal. That's why when you go to the zoo, it is a place that is full of animals. But zoology is a really broad field of biology. Typically, a zoologist will specialize in something about the structure or function or behavior of animals, or they will specialize in a group of animals. So, a zoology researcher might be interested in the anatomy or the structure of the organisms or the organs within that organism. They might be interested in the physiology, which is the study of the functions of those organs. They might be interested in the ethology, or the behavior of the animals. And then some examples of different um, types of, groups of animals that one zoologist might want to research. Primatology is the study of primates, like the famous primatologist Jane Goodall, who worked with the chimpanzees. Herpetologist studies reptiles. Entomologists study insects. Cetologists, they study things like dolphins and whales. Hippologists, they might sound like they study hippos, but a hippologist studies horses. The word hippopotamus means water horse. And then parasitologists study parasites. Take a moment and think to yourself, which of these is an animal? That was a trick question because they are all animals. Um, the animal kingdom includes a very diverse group of organisms. 95%, the majority of animals, do not have a backbone, and the greatest percentage of invertebrates that make up the animal kingdom are insects and arachnids, things like spiders. 5% of animals are vertebrates. They do have a backbone. These are things like mammals, reptiles, and birds. But what all animals have in common is that they are first all heterotrophic, which means that they all have to eat for their source of energy. They are all eukaryotic, which means that the cells that make up these animals contain DNA in a nucleus. They are all multicellular, meaning they are made of many different cells, and their cells lack the cell wall that gives support and structure to plant cells and fungi. So here's a diagram of a typical animal cell. It is eukaryotic because it's got a nucleus, and around the edge of the cell, it's only the cell membrane. There isn't that rigid, sturdy cell wall. Most animals have 7 main functions. The first is feeding. Because they are heterotrophic, they have to eat. Herbivores eat plants. Carnivores eat other animals. Omnivores eat both plants and animals. And detritivores, like these maggots over here, they eat decaying material. Some animals are filter feeders. These are mostly aquatic animals, and they strain the food from water, like you were straining spaghetti from a pot. Um, Things like sea sponges, which are animals, and this basking shark. You see how it's got the big, wide mouth that it'll swim along and it'll catch all the little tiny marine organisms that are floating around in the water. Parasites are other examples of heterotrophs that live in or on another organism in a symbiotic relationship. Some of these are things like roundworms, like this worm that's inside this poor toad's eye, tapeworms, ticks, and lice. Or if we see this very unfortunate caterpillar that met up with the wrong wasp, and the wasp laid its eggs on it, and once the eggs hatched, the larvae eat the caterpillar. In addition to feeding, all animals have to do respiration. They have to take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide. And there's a few different ways that animals can do this. They can use gills, which will help catch oxygen that's dissolved in water. Most terrestrial or land-dwelling animals can breathe using lungs. And some animals, like amphibians and worms, they will actually be able to breathe a little bit through their skin. Their skin is so thin that oxygen from the air can diffuse across the skin and into their blood. Once that oxygen gets in the blood, animals have to have a way of moving that oxygen throughout the body. And the way they do this is by circulation. Animals have circulatory systems. Small animals, like this earthworm, that's another example of an animal that can breathe through their skin. Once they breathe, oxygen molecules will diffuse into the bloodstream, and the earthworm has a heart that will pump some blood throughout its body to deliver that oxygen to all the cells. Large animals have a very complex circulatory system. Like this is an example of a human circulatory system with the big network of arteries, veins, and capillaries that are designed to transport oxygen and carbon dioxide around the body and back to the lungs. Next is excretion. Animals have to remove wastes, and in animals, the kidneys are the main excretory organs. Invertebrates, and makes up part of the excretory system, creates urine. Again, some smaller animals with very thin, moist skin, some of them are able to excrete waste through their skin. And humans do that too, a little bit. But the kidney is the main organ that gets rid of most of the waste. Next is response. Animals have to be able to take in sensory input from their external environment and be able to respond to it. And animals do this with a nervous system. So most animals have some type of nervous system, and it might be very simple. Maybe just a few nerve cells spread out throughout the body, not like humans have with the brain and big, long networks of nerves running throughout the body. But most animals have a nervous system. And a lot of animals have reflexes, like this dog here that's paddling in water, to automatically help protect them from any dangerous stimuli. Next is movement. Many animals are able to do some type of movement. And that movement is usually voluntary, meaning that they decide when and where they are moving. And this could be swimming, crawling, flying, running, slithering. Some animals don't move at all. These are things like sea sponges and another type of animal called the hydra that is very similar to a jellyfish. They are sessile, meaning that they are unable to move. So take a minute and in a puzzle question, write down the differences between these different terms. If you don't know them, then that's okay. Take your best guess. So these terms describe all the different ways that animals can get around. Animals could be quadrupedal, having 4 legs, or bipedal, like humans are bipedal. We have 2 legs. Walk around on those 2 legs. Animals could walk on land and be terrestrial, or they could swim in the ocean and be aquatic. Animals that don't move are sessile. Um, Another word for this, maybe help you remember what this word means, is sedentary, or sits and does nothing. Um, like if you live a sedentary lifestyle, you just sit on the couch all day. Versus modal. Modal is movement. And finally, there is reproduction. Most animals reproduce sexually. That involves two parents, a male and a female, the combination of a sperm cell and an egg cell to create a new offspring that contains 50% of the genes from the mother and 50% of the genes from the father. Um, Animals that do sexual reproduction, the vast majority of them are oviparous, meaning that they lay eggs, like this frog here, all those tadpoles that are hatching from their eggs. And mammals are viviparous. That means they give live births. Many invertebrates can also reproduce asexually, meaning that they are able to make genetically identical clones of themselves. So, hydras do this, sea sponges do this, corals are able to do this, and some smaller worms are able to do this.